Okay, in the previous video, we went through the page break preview. So under the view tab, if you click on page break preview, remember this, especially if you actually zoom it smaller, so let's actually decrease it here on the bottom right, it gives you a nice bird's eye view of how the printing of each page would actually work out, right? So that's the page break preview. What I also want to show you though is that if you go to the view tab as well and you click on the page layout option, you'll come to this option where it's a lot easier to add the headers and footers. So if I click on this header area, you can see here's the left side of the header, the middle, and the right. And this is much more visual than the other way that we did it. And if I click here, say I'm in the header, right, you'll notice that on the top there is a header and footer tab that now becomes activated. If I click on that tab, I now have the same option. So I could, for example, type in the word page, and then I can put in the current page by clicking on that icon. So that's the current page, page 1 of, and however many pages there are. I then click on that icon. So here, it's the same options that were available in the page setup dialog box, but it's a lot more easier to read here because the description of each item is listed directly underneath the icons. So just note that you can actually do your header and footer from this particular view of the page layout view instead of going via the route of the page setup dialog box. I'm just going to highlight all of these and delete it. To go and actually do the footer, you can see here's the option to jump to the footer. So you click on that, it takes you to the footer. Now you can see that with the footer, it actually shows you the values of the current page. Once I click on them, it then actually changes it into these codes, right? These merge codes, which we've used from the top over here. So here it says page 1 of 5, but the moment I click to edit it, it then gives me the actual code and I can make any changes in terms of that. And similarly on this side, if I click on it, remember these are the ones that we added in via the page setup dialog box. So once I'm actually done with this particular view, once you're done with this changing of the header and footer, what you should do is just click anywhere outside of it, and you can see that header and footer tab is no longer available. If I click back in it, it becomes available again for editing. So just to refresh, this particular view of seeing the pages with the header and footer in this view is underneath the view tab, the page layout view. We're going to go back to the normal view. So I'll click on that and we're back in the normal view. So I'm now going to go into the print preview again by pressing Ctrl P. And I just want to show you a few of the other options. So as we said, once you're ready to print, you can click on this print icon. You do select the printer from the drop down over here. The printers that you see here will be those that are installed on your system in terms of Windows. Now on this first option, you can see it says print active sheets, print entire workbook, or print a selection, right? Now currently, it's only printing the sheet that we were on. When we press Ctrl P, we were on the sheet called December sales. So that's why it's only going to basically be printing this particular sheet. If we, however, clicked on this drop down and said print entire workbook, you have to click again here to show the print preview for the entire workbook. But now you can see it's printing 18 pages here at the bottom, and now it's printing November sales. It's not formatted the way we had formatted the December sales sheet. So it's still like, remember there are 3 sheets, which I'll show you now shortly, and then only after this November sales basically is printed. If I keep on scrolling down, I then come to the December sales, which is the one that we worked on with the footer and with the various formatting. And then if I carry on, it'll then basically come to the last sheet. So this option here of printing the entire workbook, just to go out here, click on the back, it's printing, we were on this month 12, this December sales, so month sales 12. There's also a month sales 11 and a possible question sheet at the bottom. So when we selected the entire workbook, it was printing all of them. So if you only wanted to print a certain selection of a sheet, right? Let's say I only wanted to print this particular area over here. I don't want to print more than that. Let's just say up till this point, up to the selling price, just this little section. Now, if I go into Ctrl P in the print preview, right, what I can do is I can select print the selection only. If I select that, and now I click on print preview, it'll only actually show a printing for that selected portion. So that's just something to be aware of. If you just want to print a small portion of something out, you can highlight it and use the print selection option. I'm going to go back here to the print active sheets, which then actually prints that current, shows me the print preview for that sheet that we were on, which was the December sales. So you may see an option to print one-sided or double-sided, depending on your printer. So you can save on paper by printing on both sides of a page. This also deals with collation. So if you're printing, let's say 10 copies, how do you want to print it? Let's say there's 5 pages here, right? And if you're going to print 10 copies of this particular set, do you want to print page 1 5 times, then print page 2 5 times, and then page 3, or do you want to print a full set 1 2 3 4 5, then move on to the next set and print 1 2 3 4 5? So that's basically what the collation means. We already covered the landscape versus the portrait orientation. Remember, this was initially in a portrait view, but in order to get all the columns to fit nicely across, we changed it to a landscape. This is your page size. Typically, this would depend on your printer. Most typically, it is going to be A4. Now, margins basically deal with the spaces around on the edges here, right? So let's just change it to narrow to show you. So you see, narrow basically reduces the space on the ends. Now there's much more. It's basically gone to the end. It looks like there's more space here, but that's just because there isn't anything further to print. That's why it looks like there's more space, but there's effectively less margin over here. You can see even at the bottom, less space. And you can also go to wide margins, which actually puts much more space around everything. So there's wide margins, narrow margins, and then the normal margins. And of course, you can have totally custom set margins. These are certain, in inches, it's basically put in here, but you can go into custom margins, for example, and you can actually set exactly what margins you want for, top, left, bottom, and so forth in terms of that. So we'll basically just click on canceling on that. And then in terms of scaling, it's currently set on custom scaling because we had to drag that page break, remember, to fit it onto one page. So now it's basically a custom scaling in terms of how much of what change there is to the size in order for it to fit on this page.